everyone, and welcome to the Cozy Mystery Mingle. So today we have Angela Sanders. I'm very excited. Hi, Angela.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're at right now?
Well, physically, I'm in Portland, Oregon, in my disastrous office, which I blurred so that you can't see everything that's happening back there. And I'm working on book 6 of the Witchy Way Librarian Mysteries. Book 5 is coming out toward the end of the month. And I think I'm going to have one of the best years of my life. I'm just going to say that right now.
That's pretty amazing. We should stop and talk about that. Is that a feeling, or is that like I put some goals together and I'm going to make it happen?
Well, I like that idea of being really good. When I was looking at last year, I realized, how you think about what you're doing and what you need to do instead of looking back and thinking about what you've actually accomplished. When I look back at last year, I realized it was kind of a big year in a lot of ways that I didn't expect. And I think it's just set me up to have a good year coming up. Yeah.
Nice.
It's pretty vague, isn't it? Yeah, I didn't reveal anything too. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good year. Hopefully it's a good year for everybody. Everybody who's watching.
Yeah, I think that helps too. Like, I'm not really touchy-feely, but I think that the vibrational energy and like what you manifest. So if you're like just looking for good things to happen.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. If you're expecting that it's going to be good, it will be good. If you're expecting it's going to be bad, guaranteed you're going to find things that are going to get you.
Exciting. Cool. So we're here today to talk about your new release for this month, which is Gone with the Witch. It's number 5 in the Witchy Way Librarian Mysteries. So do you want to tell everyone about your book?
Yeah, so book 5, this series has been super fun to write. As I've said, the main character, Josie, is a librarian. She's also a witch. She finds out in book 1 she's a witch. She didn't know. She finds out by accident. And so she really doesn't have a mentor except for letters from her long dead grandmother, who had somehow foreseen that she was going to need to instruct Josie, her granddaughter. And so each book, it's been fun as I've tried to figure out what makes Josie a witch and where are her powers and what can she do. In this book, her magic comes from books. She loves books, and so her power comes from what she loves, which is books. So all that energy that authors put into books and that readers put into books. I mean, just imagine, like, you open a book and you read it, and your view, and it talks about a character sitting at a cafe. You have a picture in your mind of that character at the cafe. And all these other readers do too, and it's different. Everybody's putting their energy in this book. So Josie's a witch can tap into that energy and use it to fuel her magic. And books talk to her. And in this book, I decided that maybe a particular famous sleuth can emerge from a book and help her solve. So, and I'll just tell you, the famous sleuth is Sherlock Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes becomes her detective partner in this. And they fight a lot about who the Watson is, but you can figure out who you think it is by the end of the book. So it was really fun to do that.
That's very cool. And you didn't give anything away. I think that's actually in the description on Amazon.
Okay, good.
So
good. You write these books so far ahead of time. Sometimes it's hard to remember. And I'm so deep. I'm almost finished with book 6. So my head is totally in the next book right now. It's due back to the publisher at the end of the month.
Yes.
So, yeah. And then one of the things too, and I've heard other writers talk about this, sometimes as you're writing a series, you plant things that are going to, bear fruit at some point in the future, and you don't even know it. And in this one, I had a character, Mrs. Garlington. She is the town organist and poet. She teaches organ lessons actually in the library, sometimes during hours, sometimes after hours. Her favorite songs are Please Release Me and Spanish Eyes. And she's a proper sort of older lady. But earlier in the series, maybe even the first book, I mentioned that her husband had disappeared, years before, in the early 1970s. And this book, this is one of these things that just sort of came to me in this brainwave. I thought, what if she's looking up at the TV and she sees her long disappeared, considered dead husband on a TV game show? What if she looks up and there he is? So that's kind of the premise that starts this.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a good mystery. So let's talk about, well, I should just mention too, if you are new to this series, this is book 5. So books 1 through 4, should they have read those before they read this?
No, you don't have to. It's kind of fun to do it though, because there are a couple of subplots that go from book to book.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, this book 5, starts a subplot. Book 5, 6, and 7. That's a big part.
Okay.
Excuse me. And but no, you don't have to. I try to write them so that you can pick up any book and be introduced to the townspeople and the issues that are at hand. But it can be kind of fun to start at 1 and go through the books. I would say if any of the books look interesting to you, pick it up, read it, and then go back to 1 and see where you go. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, and after you read book 1, if you want, you can go. I'll leave a link to it. Courtney for the Cozy Escape Book Club read book 1 in this series, so they just talked about it 2 months ago.
Oh, yay! Yeah,
it's good insight. Yeah, everyone loved it.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So you said you're already writing book 6. When is that one coming out?
So that one will be 9 months after. So the book 5 is considered a March release, so it comes out last Tuesday in February. And so 9 months after that, book 6 will come out. That's usually how my books are spaced. And it looks like, so I'm contracted through book 6. It looks like I'll at least be writing a book 7 and then just see, the publisher likes to look at how sales are going. And generally the books have been pretty popular. So, and then decide what happens with that.
Very cool. So the number one toughest thing for me whenever I write a series, and I know this is silly, is picking out names. And you did a really cool thing where she's named Josie Way, right? After a French queen.
Josie Way, right. So Josie is the second of 3 sisters. Their father teaches French history at community college. So he named each of his daughters after a French queen. So daughter number 1 is Marie Antoinette, and so they call her Tony. And Josie is Josephine, after Napoleon's wife, so Josie. And then their little sister is Eugenie, and she's called Jean. So, and then characters in the books. I know what you mean. It's so hard to think. I have a character right now I'm trying to name, and I know that she's kind of evil. I can't think of the right name, so I put the placeholder of Karen in the books. That's I can figure it out. I got the right name because that's not the right one. But I have found a lot of success in naming characters after my friends' pets.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 cats named Bitsy and Squeaky, and that really wouldn't work unless maybe I had a Chicago gangster or something in the 1920s, Squeaky something. But there's kids, Buffy and Thor in my series, and they're named after friends' wiener dogs. And then there's Kirby River running through town. That's after my friend JD Horn's Chihuahua, Kirby. And a lot of people, I name them after people's pets.
Very cool. So I won't get into it because I want people to read book 1. I think they're going to love it. But how much of your Congressional Investigator background really went into creating Josie and her background?
Well, a lot of it did. When I decided to make her from D.C., because I lived there for 4.5 years, and there were just certain places I could just imagine in my head. And one of them, there's a scene it takes place in a flashback in the stacks of the Library of Congress. And that's one of the things that I will never forget. If you go into the Library of Congress, many people don't know that floors and floors and floors below the Library of Congress are stacks just full of books, all sorts of old books. And you take an elevator down. I could go down because I had, ID as a Congressional Investigator, and Library of Congress is a congressional agency. You go down a big elevator and it opens up and it's pitch black because, they don't want to keep the lights running down there all the time. And when you are under the earth and it's pitch black, it's a feeling like nothing else, but you can just smell the books, just rows and rows of books. So you punch a light, and then the light will come on, tick, 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 tick. It's on a timer. At the end of each row, there's a little light punch, and go and find the book you want, and then go back into the elevator. So that has always stuck with me. So I had to put that image into the book. And if you read it, you can see there's sort of there's an older mystery Josie when she goes to Wilford, Oregon, which is where the series is set. It's a tiny little nowhere town, and it's in fact a totally made up town in Oregon. It's sort of a combination of some old timber towns here. Mm-hmm. Oregonians would know where they are, but probably nobody else. And not all Oregonians, these tiny little towns. She's escaping DC, she's on the run in book one because she's seen something she's not supposed to see, and she fears for her life. So she thinks she is completely escaping by going to Wilfred and taking over the position of librarian, which is surprisingly easy job to get over the phone. So what's going on there? So she and then stumbles over a dead body, and so there's a question about, does this have to do with her escape, or does this have to do with some other crime that's happening in Wilfred, or maybe both? And the reason that I brought that up was I can't remember. So there you go.
Well, I asked how your congressional expertise worked into Josie's background.
Yeah. So I guess having her escape from a place that I knew and go to a place that I knew, kind of, because I know this part of the world, that just made a lot of sense for me. It was just, I could see, when you write, I don't know if this is true for you, but like when I'm writing, I just sort of see the things happen. It's like a movie is filling in my head, and I'll have to stop the movie sometimes and go back and change stuff, but it's really visual. So if I can visualize a place where somebody is, it just comes to life. In DC, I could visualize. So I decided to have her there and have that be where she ran from.
Very cool. So that was book one. Do we ever see any more congressional related items in any of the other books?
I don't think so. She refers to it, but no, I don't think there's any more DC connection. Her family is all out there. Okay. So, she has connection with them. The sister comes in book 4, and the mom comes in book 6, which I'm working on right now, to visit. So there's, some connection to the East Coast.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go back. The coolest part of this is that she's a witch. Right. So, and she doesn't become a witch until she actually steps into Oregon. Right. So let's talk about her witchy powers.
Well, so that was kind of a weird thing. Cause like, how do you write a witch? I didn't want to write this all powerful witch. You could go, I know who the murderer is because I'm a witch. Oof. No, because I'm a witch. You're in jail.
Right.
Obviously that's not going to work. She's got to have some limits to her power. And I also wanted to make it like almost plausible. Because if you want to, you can look at people's lives and find like witchiness everywhere. Like sometimes you just know stuff. You don't know why you know it. You just know it. Or you'll be thinking about somebody and then they show up back in your life that week. Or the old, I know who was going to call before they called. I mean, there's just so many things that almost feel a little bit witchy. Or you just might have a knack. Like you have a knack for growing houseplants that none of your friends do for some reason. What is that green thumb? Maybe it's a little bit of witchiness. Or you just get along really well with cats. Cats always walk up to you when they won't go to anybody else. Maybe that's a little bit of witchiness. So I wanted to make her magic something that like could almost be true. That you could kind of understand where it came from, but also that had limitations. So when I decided, well, her magic, her power should come from what she loves, and she loves books. And the energy that was put into books, that's what she could draw from. That made sense. It also gave her limitations. It meant that if she wasn't around books, she wouldn't have that magic. And it also meant that the books could send her messages that maybe were confusing. The books might decide that they're going to deliver a novel or two to her bedside table each night, but maybe she picks up a novel that is something about, like Toxic Families 101, and she thinks it has to do with her family, but really it has to do with another family related to a murder. That's just an example. I just totally made it up. It's not in the books. I think there's a cat coming into my lap. Oh, that's, yep. Oh, she went to the window.
Everybody loves seeing cats.
She's a little black cat. I put also Cat Rodney in the series, a black cat. Because, black cat, okay, a witch needs a familiar, right? But I also kind of don't call him a familiar, and Josie refers to him as her cat friend. She doesn't want to say familiar. And I thought, so I named him Rodney. I gave him his own personality, kind of an alley cat, but really like a real princess of one. And I love black cats too. I just think they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
They're beautiful cats. Yeah.
So with her witchy power, and we find out that it's actually from her family lineage, right? But she just never knew about it before.
She never knew about it because her mother didn't want her to have anything to do with the hot cattail. Her mom, Her mom didn't want her to have anything to do with magic. So her mother made her grandmother bind her powers, but the binding was geographic. So when she crossed the Continental Divide in an airplane, she suddenly had this like shoe snap. She thought, I mean, like the hostess in the plane came over, was like, "Are you okay?" But and then all of a sudden, really weird things started happening to her. You know, to books started talking to her. She's, you know, thought that she heard. So yeah, her magic is unleashed, but she's going somewhere. She's on her way somewhere that no one can know where she is. So she can't even, you know, contact her family and say, you know, what the heck is going on.
Cool. So, and then her mom is going to be in book 6, you said, right?
Yes.
So will we see more witchy power growth or just more exploring the mom's witch powers?
Well, so Josie definitely grows over the series as she becomes more confident in her power, and as she figures stuff out that she can do with the book's energy. And then her sister Jean comes in book 4, and Jean is a healer, but not as powerful as Josie. Josie has every few generations. The witch family spits out a super powerful witch, and they have a birthmark that shows that they are of this powerful lineage. And you get, in this witch world, you get a source of your power. So for Josie, it's books, and then a drive. And for Josie, it's justice. And the combination of that extra strong power and justice is something that has done in her. Like, she's a great grandmother in Scotland who was more than great. It had to be like 4 or 5 greats, who was burned at the stake because she was super powerful witch, and she wasn't going to listen to what some of the people in her village wanted to do to, you know, she had a sense of justice. So she ended up being burned at the stake. And so Josie has that combination. And the other witches in her family, her mother and 2 sisters, have lesser power. And then 2 of them are healers, and then her mother has the power of sight, but her mom doesn't really use it. Her mom doesn't want. So in book 6, her mom does have to grapple with that.
Right. Yes. Cool. And she's the only magical one, right, in the series. There's not like a werewolf and a vampire that hang out with her for happy hour.
I know. I kind of don't like that. No, I kind of, when I read a witch book and all of a sudden there's like, you know, hey, I'm a werewolf or I'm a zombie or whatever. I'm really kind of not into it. I like reading about paranormal stuff, but when we get too deep into that world, that fantasy world, it kind of loses me. And I know different people have different levels of paranormal that they like. So no, there's just her, and she knows there must be other witches in the world, and she talks to her mom about relatives they might have. But we don't really, well, I don't want to give too much away, but no, there's no vampires and werewolves.
All right. Well, I like that because then it makes her special. Because I feel like if there were like tons of supernatural, just like you said, it's like everybody's supernatural. Like, what's the big deal?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are, and there's lots of series where that's like, oh, this is a little town in Colorado where everybody's magical. And it's like, well, you know, I get it, but I don't know. That's not the first kind of book I'm drawn toward.
Right.
I can see where they'd be fun to write, though.
Yeah, for sure. So Josie, how much is Josie like a mini Angela?
You know, she's not, I would say my character, Joanna, in another series I wrote, Vintage Clothing Mysteries, she is probably more like me. She's sort of this curmudgeonly aesthete, you know, who like refuses to drink coffee and lets it in a special cup and stuff like that. But one thing with Josie, and Josie is more naive than I am. Oh, I think I'm kind of naive anyway. But I did give her my hair. You know, when you're trying to think of a physical description of somebody, and it's like, and I'd already done some blondes and brunettes and whatever, and I thought, oh, just give her like frizzy red hair. She's a witch; she can deal with it. So it's like, yeah, I know her hair, so I did give her my hair. And there are a few things as the series goes on, because once she gets her witch powers, this veil, like she's sort of been shut down in a way. And so this veil is lifted, and the world is keener to her. Like, the smells of cut grass. It's like suddenly she can really smell it. She can really see that gorgeous blue sky. She can just really feel the wonderful texture of these old linen sheets. And so that's the kind of stuff I appreciate. So she does, over the course of the book, come to appreciate those things more and more because I like writing about them.
Nice. Cool.
There's me and her that way.
And so who is her sidekick then?
Well, she has a friend Lelania, who is the psychic. She's sort of a trailer park psychic in town.
Okay.
And but she's not, she's like the practical side of magic. She does, she contacts, dead spirits or whatever, but she's like, no, I do it for the money. What I do is I tell people what they need to hear. You want to get in touch with your, dead grandma. I know what you really need. You need some mothering. So I just tell you what I think your grandmother's saying. And, and I think in book 1, she holds up a tarot card and she's like, look at this tarot card, whatever it was. I can't remember. Queen of Pentacles. This can mean a million different things. I just tell you what I think you need to hear that comes from this card. So she's, and if she knew Josie was an actual witch, she would flip out. She wouldn't even believe it. So she's a really good book learned witch, but she doesn't really believe in magic. Where Josie is, she has magic, but she really doesn't know anything about being a witch. So that's kind of her best friend. Delaney lives in a trailer park. She's got a really small bathtub, so she comes up to the library because it's in a Victorian mansion and takes baths every Tuesday night and has dinner with Josie.
Nice. Oh yeah, that's the best part. So when I read the first book, I was like, does Angela live in a Victorian mansion?
I wish, in my dreams I do. Well, you know how it is. Like when you're writing a world, why not? You're going to be spending some time in there. And like I could have written, a 1950s, government issued library building, but how fun is that? It's no fun. So I put it in a Victorian mansion. I love to go to thrift shops. So I found this big book of like Victorian house floor plans. So there was an Italianate mansion, and I just converted that to the library.
Nice. So have you actually in real life found a Victorian Mansion library?
No. I mean, they must be out there somewhere.
I mean, I've seen like shops that have books and candles and like cute stuff that's a Victorian house, but I haven't found a library yet.
No, I thought it would make this library a place I wanted to go, because that's kind of half the fun it's half the fun, definitely half the fun of writing a book, but also reading a book is being in this place. So I made a Victorian mansion because I thought that was cool, and so that there's fireplaces in all the book rooms and old tattered old covered furniture and chandeliers that are missing their crystals. But there's chandeliers and a big kitchen in the back where a lot of people come in the side into the kitchen and have coffee and chat before they go out. There's a cat in the library, Rodney. There's an organ upstairs in the old master bedroom dressing room that Mrs. Garlington teaches organ lessons on, and a big bathtub that people from the trailer park come up and use because it's roomy. I just thought this is a world that I would want to hang out in. Josie's office is in the old pantry under the staircase and has a casement window that opens up to the river. Yeah. I think it's really important. I always tell people that when I talk to new writers starting their series, is create a world you want to spend time in. Because you're going to spend a lot of time in it. So it might as well be alluring to you.
Very cool. So does Josie's powers, her witchy powers, when we say the library talks to her, is it because the Victorian building is kind of magical, or is it just her? Like, could she walk really into any library and the books will talk to her?
So yeah, it's the books more than the library that talk to her. Although there is a portrait of the founder, Marilyn Wilfred, above the door in her 1920s flapper gown, and she kind of wonders if that portrait is enchanted, but you can't really tell.
Okay.
And then, or at least not so far. Maybe she'll tell at some point. I'm not sure. But it's the books. It's a book. She can be somewhere, and if you have a book in your pocket, that book is talking to her. Like, if you're reading a Western, you might hear galloping horses and gunfire coming out of your pocket.
Okay.
Or
go on.
Well, I say, or if she's somewhere facing off a murderer and she's lucky enough that there's a thriller in the building that's nearby, that thriller might give her some moves she needs to get out of her situation.
Okay. And so it's the whole book that talks to her, not just like one character within the book.
Right. It's a whole book. Although there are characters, a couple times there are characters who have talked to her. And one book, I think it was in book 3, Witch and Famous, she makes composite characters. Like she needs advice on solving a murder. So she goes to the library and it's like, all of the hard-boiled detectives, come together and make one character. All the girl detectives make one character, all the golden age detectives. And so they crystallize into these characters on a desk and give her advice.
Huh. That's a good idea. Just Don't even worry about who's the best. Just put them all together.
I mean, you think like a hard boiled, you know what the guy's going to look like. He's going to have like a slouchy fedora and a trench coat and talk in a certain voice.
Yeah, very cool. So this whole series is set in Oregon in a make-believe town, and
Yes.
she moved here from DC. So have you is there a big contrast for you for her, like pointing things out all the time on the differences between the two? And does she miss DC, or does she like love this small town so much she doesn't even?
In book one, she misses some things about DC for sure. She misses things about city life, but she really does come to embrace Wilfred, and she does love it there. It's a small town. Everybody knows your business, but she also has, I mean, she's young, but she has a position of authority as a town librarian, and she finds she really loves it, and she's attached to the library and its books. You know, those books are protecting her and funneling her magic, and then she also falls in love with the guy next door. So there's that.
Okay. And you put this in Oregon because you love Oregon and that's where you're at, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm in Portland, so Portland's a city, but I grew up in a rural area in Northern California. And I remember like the timber towns, the old abandoned logging towns, you know, where the workers used to live, the loggers used to live. And the smell of the dirt and all of that. I loved my rural upbringing. So this gave me a chance to bring back some of that too.
Nice. Okay. So I guess when we think about weather in Portland, you have all 4 seasons, right? Winter. So is there any particular season that you love to showcase in books, or you're not really?
Oh, you know, I think the seasons are super important in writing about a book. And I like to showcase, I think, extreme weather when it comes to it. I like it when it's hot, 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 or when it's really, really cold and snowy and icy, or when there's hurricanes, when there's forest fires, when there's floods. You know, it's kind of nice when the weather is a character and plays a big role. It's dramatic. It's exciting. It's like we're writing goofy fiction. I mean, goofy meaning like, come on, I'm writing about a witch librarian and a magic cat. So why not just make it dramatic, pull in these big factors.
And what's the weather like in this book?
This book, though, the one that comes in, Gone with the Witch, is spring.
Okay.
Rainy spring weather, kind of cold, but some days are warmer, and it's really off and on. It can be raining, pounding rain, it can be drizzling, or it cannot be. Spring around here that's when people say Portland has all 4 seasons, you know, in one day. You know, it's a common joke. Yeah.
And then, so are you a big library patron? Do you go all the time to check your books out there, or no?
I love a library. I love a library. I mean, I grew up loving libraries. I remember as like a kid thinking, if I had $1 million, would I start a museum or a library? It's like library. You know, you play games with yourself when you're a kid. I always loved libraries. My mom used to drop me off at the library in town, and while she went to do whatever she was doing, I would spend hours there. I thought, you know, if I'm going to be a person who is, a woman of the world, this is when I'm like 10. There are certain things that I need to know. So I went through the classical record collection. I think I only got to like Chopin before I pooped out, but like I need to know certain, authors and artists. And so I went on this whole self-education program in the library. And I'm sure the librarians were, they see some girl with this mass of curly hair who's obviously serious about what she's doing, even though it's ridiculous. So I love the libraries. And during COVID, I used the electronic, getting ebooks in the library. That saved me. I could just sit with my Kindle and, read a book, and then 5 minutes later have another one on my Kindle ready to go. I just think that's magical.
Yeah.
I love the library. I mean, you probably do too, don't you, if you like books?
I mean, for sure. I do miss the library in New York City, but yeah.
The big one with the lions?
And there's a huge difference, like vast night and day between the books that you can get electronically, even from New York, versus here.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think they must have a bigger budget, or they just order more books because of the population, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, that is really interesting. We have a pretty robust, and Multnomah County has one of the best library systems around. Maybe
Mhm.
because it rains a lot here. People, I don't know, but
So
yeah,
it's
they have something to do. So yeah, but no, I love the library. I've always loved the library. Yeah, and this some of the programs, like in fact, maybe I should put this. I need to put this in one of my books. Like the programs where kids can read to dogs,
oh yeah,
and then I could have the dog and Rodney get into it. You
yeah,
know?
that'd be cute.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It just like it breaks my heart to see this sweet lab just sitting there listening to some kid read a book.
And Angela Sanders isn't your only pen name. You have another pen name, right?
Right. So Angela M. Sanders is this pen name. That's my actual real name.
Uh
And
huh.
then I have a pen name, Clover Tate. I wrote a series for Berkeley Crime that takes place at a kite shop on the Oregon coast.
Very cool. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that series? Because there's a bunch of books in there.
Yeah, well, there's 3 books in there. That was written, that's a house series. So it means that it's kind of like Nancy Drew, where the publisher owns that name. So if they decided to write more books, they could farm it out to somebody else and somebody else would
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah, that happens pretty commonly. I didn't know it either. I didn't know it until, my agent said, "Hey, do you want to pitch in writing the series that, Berkeley wants to do a series set at the coast, a kite shop." So I was like, "Well, okay." And then they took it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that was their concept, and you just stepped in, almost like a job.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I
Yeah.
know.
Very cool.
It taught me a lot about writing proposals, which was good. Yeah, one of their assistant editors had gone to the coast, and her boyfriend said, "Wouldn't it be cute to have a mystery, around a kite shop?" And so she went back and pitched it to the publisher, and they said, "Okay, you find a writer, and we'll do it."
Okay. I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before the show. You write in cozy mysteries. Are you thinking about, or have you ever thought about writing in another genre, romance, or
Or something else.
sci-fi?
Well, so I do, or I have written magazine articles, and I love
Okay.
that. I love doing profiles of people and I do some perfume writing as well, which is a lot of people are like, perfume? What the heck? I
Very
wrote on a blog for a bunch of years, and they've written for a French perfume magazine called Nay magazine.
cool.
And not in French, though, they translate the articles. So, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy talking to people and writing about it. But I also think to keep you writing fresh, I don't know how you feel about it. For me, sometimes it's nice to shake it up a little bit. Oh, cat's back. Let's see if her tail goes flat again. But I want to start a series where I do multiple points of view. There goes the tail. Where I do multiple points of view instead of a first person, one point of view, just to shake it up a little bit to keep it fresh. And then maybe do a mystery that's a little less cozy. I'm too shy to write about sex, and hardcore violence is not very interesting to me. But maybe something with just a little slightly different flavor. Maybe something with more caper in it. I love capers. I think they're
Okay.
hilarious and fun. Um, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I want to keep in this writing game for a lot of years, and it'd be fun to do other things as well as cozy. But I love the mystery genre. I
Mhm.
really do. Um, yeah.
So, what are your plans for your writing plans for 2024? You're finishing up book 6 and
Right.
7.
Right. So I'll write book 6, and it looks like book 7. And then I can't really talk about it too much, but there's talk about spinning off a character who comes into book 7 of this series into another series, a paperback original series. So I'm sort of working on that concept, and we'll see if that goes anywhere. And so if that happens, I may be writing a couple books at the same time. I also write and self-publish a series of vintage clothing mysteries, and I have one that is plotted out. And that series, I get all the time emailing me, "When's the next book coming out? When's the next book coming out?" And they're all, based after a vintage clothing designer, sort of the center of it. But I have one plotted out, and I just haven't had time to write it. So if I get some time to do that, then I'll also do that. And I really need to get better work habits. I need like the, writing dominatrix to be like standing out the door with the whip. "Oh, sit at your computer." I've tried all kinds of different tricks. But
Yeah, I say that sometimes too. I need like adult supervision. Sure.
That's a good way to
Say doing what I need
to describe it. Now, let me show you Bitsy. She's on my lap right now. Bits. Oh, there she is.
Oh,
there's her little belly. Okay, you sit down.
cute. That's the cat that goes with the tail.
That's right. Exactly. It's the rest of her.
And we were talking about this too. So where can readers find you if they wanted to hang out with you? Are you just on your website or a blog or anywhere else?
Well, so my website is a good place to get in touch with me, and I welcome emails. You know, if you have feedback, if you have anything bad to say about my books, I'm really not interested in that, so please don't. There's a cat's head. But I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I have sort of bailed on for the moment because it seems like whenever I go on the Facebook, it's either about politics or somebody's dog has died or somebody's like husband is in the hospital, and it just got to be too hard, especially during the pandemic. It's like I can't see another dying beagle. Yeah. So I bailed on Facebook and started focusing more on Instagram. And so Instagram is where I am in social media primarily.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd love to hear from. Oh, I have a really good newsletter too. So if you go to my website, you can sign up. It's AngelaMSanders.com. My newsletter comes out every month. I'm overdue to send out one now. And I try it. It's not just like, oh, here's a bunch of stuff about me. And, oh, I hurt my ankle. Don't you want to hear about this for 2 paragraphs? It's I write a lot about like the stuff that is interesting to me right now, great movies I've seen. I like to write about like really stylish women in the past. I think it's really fun. And some witchy stuff too gets in there.
I mean, that makes sense if you have like vintage clothing.
I do. I know. I love it. So every once in a while, I'll find a photo of like a spectacular dress and talk about like how I would style it. Yeah.
And we've been ignoring everyone in the comments. So we have, I don't know if you can see it. We have Valanda, hello from Detroit.
Nice. Hi, Valanda. Love that name.
Feeling. I think she was talking about how you said 2024 was going to be a great year.
Okay, good. Yes. And hopefully it will for you too.
Yeah. Karen's here. Robin from Sacramento.
Nice. Oh, I love how those. Oh yeah, Big Warm Kitchens. Me too. I love reading about them too. I love like feeling like I'm at dinner with people. That is. I love how those comments scroll down there.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Love libraries and the old bookmobiles. Oh, the bookmobiles. Yeah, those were fun.
That whole idea is so great.
Wine's story. Oh, Robin's trying to guess at your spin-off.
Oh. Well, there's an idea.
Yeah. All right. So we can pick a book giveaway winner. So you just have to pick. There were a lot of comments. So just pick a number for me and tell me between 1 and 7.
Okay. 6.
6. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's Robin Blank. So Robin, just drop me an email at lisa@lisasecret.com and we'll get a copy of the book sent over to you. So thanks so much for joining. Oh, oops, we have one more person. Elizabeth, I'm reading your first book right now and I bought the next 3.
Yay, Elizabeth, I love to hear that. And yeah, and then right, I love it. 5's coming out in a few weeks.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for coming on and telling us all about your book.
Yeah, it's a huge pleasure.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I will leave all of Angela's information in the description below if you want to sign up for her newsletter.